Hey everybody, it's Mr. Anderson here. Hey, do you guys remember when? Before we were all plugged in? Before we lost our innocence? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you do, oh, the good old days. They were better, weren't they? But what are the good old days? For each of us, that's probably something completely different. Is it that time in our lives when we first discover our existence and begin to recognize all the fascinating and exciting things around us in the world? Then, for me, the good old days are a century past. Or to translate for those of you growing up during the 21st century, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. I promise. Been a minute. Um, or are the good old days the generations before all the technological advancements that we all recognize and live with today? Then that too is the same time for me. A time now in our history books. In the good old days before technology had turned us all into cyborg like dependent drones suckling on the World Wide Web, desperate for our instant gratification, humans tenaciously had to seek out information for a deeper sense of community because it wasn't right at our fingertips. Excuse me. In the good old days, we really had to want to discover something. And I mean really want to have to discover something because we couldn't just say, hey Google, spell anti-disestablishmentarianism, or hey Alexa, excuse me, when I take a selfie, does the screen make my butt look big? I think she's lying to me just to be kind, though. I'm not sure. In the good old days, people seemed to have a greater sense of the natural world, too, and actually go out and be in it. It wasn't something like, I got this feed, I gotta repost this cause because I need to show that I'm supporting this cause to help create awareness. People actually were involved and did connect. The interaction with the natural world wasn't just some vicarious experience that they had through virtual reality on a role play game or through somebody's social media post feed. Sure, we could have only fantasized about the great, fun, useful technological advances that we all get to take advantage of today. To me, it's like I'm living in an episode of Star Trek and I'm getting to talk to Scotty on my tricorder. Anymore, I don't think I could survive without it. I've become that dependent in it too. But in the good old days, life was slower, it was simpler because we didn't or couldn't depend on technology. To give you an example, as a kid in the summer months while on school break, once I finished breakfast in the morning, I was out the door and I didn't come home until the sun was going down. We played in the dirt. We had our imaginations to fulfill us for activities throughout the day. Probably ate dirt because we stuck food out of the garden, fresh out of the ground. We got our bumps, scrapes, bruises, breaks, sprains, lacerations. But who could blame us? That willow tree in the backyard had these great branches that you could monkey swing crawl out to the end while looking out over the roofs of the neighbors' homes and be gently lowered to the ground to get out of the tree. Until I snapped that one day and dropped me from over a story to the ground. Ah, the good old days. They were simpler. We had our imaginations. The good old days were better. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.